Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Joseph Clough, and this is episode 818. 818, crazy cool. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about, I'm going to have a brief discussion on what would I personally do if I had to start again. What would I do if I knew what I knew now, yet if I had to start again to let it all go? And the reason why I say that is simply because over the last X amount of years, couple of decades, I've honestly invested like $250,000 into my development, trying to learn things, discover things. And along the way, obviously, some things don't work out, some things do work out, some things were good, some things were great, some things not so great. And I want to be able to go, well, if I could package it down into a couple of things, what would I do if I had to start all over again? Because sometimes, I don't know about you, but I have a dream. And that dream, when I'm sleeping, ever so rarely, like maybe once a year or so, maybe every other year, but I go back to when I was like 15, 14, even like when I'm 10, 11 years old. And it's quite a surreal dream, but because obviously if you know me, I used to really struggle, have anxiety, fear, worry, blushing, self-consciousness, anxiety, all those things as at school, all the way till I was in my late teens, until I started to let all of this go. And this dream that I have is me being back then, but realizing on the inside, it's going to be okay. Like, it's going to be okay. Don't worry about school. Don't worry if you're going to fail and drop out, because there's something bigger in store for you. Like, you're going to figure it out. Like, everything's going to be fine. You're going to be doing hypnosis and all these things. So it kind of got me thinking, like, well, if I could go back in time to when I decided I want to change, what would I do to quicken the process? And that means you can apply this into your life as well, because when you start to get fast-tracked to your success or get the shortcut, it allows you to get the results you want even more powerfully and more quickly than ever before. I mean, why do all the things which don't work when you can start to do the things that do work? Like, let's just skip the queue, right? Like, let's get to where we want to be quicker, faster, with less money spent, less time spent, less pain, less stress, less anxiety. So the first thing, and you'll get this one, I say it a lot, and it is the assumption of responsibility. So we're not going to dive all the way into it. I've talked about all the time in podcast episodes, but it is important because way back then I thought everything was beyond my control. I felt like life was happening to me and not for me. I felt as if this is who I am and nothing can change. I'm like fixed in place. I'm just this rigid being who believes that they're not good enough. Like, that was my reality. There was no question of anything different. There was no question of the alternative belief system, of knowing I was good enough, worthy and deserving and so on. It was just a fixed in time, fixed in place, but this is who I was, and nothing was ever going to change. So when I got to the realization that rather being like the effect of my life, rather being a consequence of my past experiences, ultimately, on the inside, I had choice. Now, that choice was pretty illusionary or elusive or whatever good word for it, because it got me to go, I now know I have responsibility, but how do I make that change? Like, I know my thoughts aren't generated outside of me. I know my beliefs aren't generated outside of me. Like, they come from within me. No one got into even my brain and said, Joseph, I'm going to just do this and therefore you're not good enough. Or, I'm going to do all the brain work to make you anxious every time you think about doing something. And I'll make you fear failure or fear of rejection or fear of what people think. All of those things. No one did it to me in a sense that they got inside my brain and did it. It was my reaction to my events, but it was my reaction. It was my decision. And I don't mean to say that in a mean way, as always. Like I'm saying, this is a good thing, because that means the person or the people or the situation or the event doesn't have to undo it, because if they were the creators of that event, they were the creators of your belief system, only they could actually let it go. So the fact that I can assume responsibility, so if I was speaking to my young self or you right now, I'd be like, look, let's assume responsibility for what we can do in this moment. You see, that's what I do have control. If I have a lack of certainty, I want to double down on my self-certainty of this present moment to do what has to be done. You see, rather pushing everything outside of me, I want to assume responsibility. Even in my opinion right now, I take bigger responsibility, if that makes sense. Like being not just in charge of my mind, but in charge of my reality. I want to take super ownership. And therefore, I at least, even if I may be fooling my mind, I have the ability to change things. That means whatever happens in the economical situations, I still have control because I'm adaptable to that moment. I can shift, I can move, I can adapt, I can be flexible in my behavior. So number one would really be, look, I can assume responsibility for this moment. And if I can, and I do the work, then I'll gain traction and momentum to be able to live the life that I want. But knowing that is not enough. So the other thing that I wasted a ton of time on, even let's broaden it out to business, right? Like I've spent tons of money in getting to hopefully get good at business. I think I do pretty good. But I could be the best hypnotherapist. But if I didn't have the skills acquired to get myself out there, people are crying out for a solution, but they don't see me. So we can apply it for different things. So I would like to then go, well, I want to make sure that I don't do the things which aren't serving. So what is the quickest route to that beyond the assumption of responsibility? Now, to me, number one, the first aspect is you have to meet the root cause. You see, we're so in the experience of anxiety. We're living in the dread, this highly associated experience of fear of failure, the fear of not being accepted, the fear of being rejected. All these fears are not the real issue. They are the symptoms of your experience. They're the symptoms that lead you to the root cause. You see, I thought blushing was the real issue. I thought my anxiety and my dread was the real issue. Why? It's easy. Because I felt it in the most amount of ways, in the most amount of time. But just because I've got a sore arm, it doesn't mean the soreness is the problem. It could be something that I'm actually doing physically. Just because I've got symptoms of sinuses, it doesn't mean it's necessarily the sinus itself. It's my reaction to something. So I want to make sure that, yes, be conscious of what I experience. So if I were you, I would write down all the symptoms of what I'm experiencing, or what you're experiencing. But if I had to start over again, I'd be writing out, what am I experiencing right now? What is showing up in my life? And that could be the psychological, that could be the emotional, it could also be the physical, and it also can be the external physical, as in like the results which are happening. Like, am I attracting the same old partner in a different form, but in the same narcissistic way? Is my situation and story showing up that I'm always in debt? No matter what, I get a little bit out, but I go all the way back in again. Like, I want to be aware of the patterns that I have. I want to be aware of what is showing up in my life, because if I just ignore that, they're still going to be there. and I can't really ignore it because I'm going to still be feeling it a lot. But if I really take note of what I am experiencing and then go, okay, out of the sum of all these things, what could be the root cause? Now, I can't tell you for that. Like, I can't say what that is. If you were speaking to me one-to-one, I could probably get like 10, 15 minutes. But because everyone's so unique in how they do it, it's very hard for me to say, this is the root cause of all your pain. But it's like going to a doctor, right? Like, you don't want to just go online and analyze yourself. Like, you go, I've got this symptom. Oh my goodness, I've got this biggest, weirdest disease in the world. When in reality, you haven't. It's just that you think that because you've read something online, but you don't have the expert advice to go, that's not true at all. So you'd go to see a real doctor, right? They'd be able to have the expert to help you. Ideally, that's what I'd want you to do. So I would fast track my results by doing just that. You see, that is another step, really, right? To focus on the root cause, but simultaneously get the help to let go of the root cause. Let's say, for example, you have a child and they have it on their heart that they want to be able to get a scholarship into a certain school, right? And maybe that scholarship is a way of sport and they're talented, they're good. Well, ideally, you want to get them the right training and the right education to be able to do that. Where it to be able to write letters, or where it be able to get a fitness coach or a basketball coach or whatever coach you need to be able to go, this is me getting my child in the right place to be able to get them to university, right? That's what my plan would be. I'd want to educate them. I want to be able to give them that. Now, on top of that, if we think about throughout school, it's all about education. Whether we agree how it's being taught and what's being taught, it is all about education. For the first, until we're like at least 16 years old. I know that in England you can like stop there if you want to. But until you're like 5 to 16, that's like 11, 12 years we're going to be having education. Because we don't know what we don't know. Yet somewhere along the line, I know for me, I missed out on the next step of education. Not only because I dropped out of college, but beyond that, I was like, I'm just going to figure out this by myself. And it got me nowhere. Not until I started to educate myself by people who knew more than me. People who knew the answer that I was seeking. There was a time when I was trying to find this real deep connection with myself. So a different part of a story of my life, but I invested so much to find something bigger than myself. Whether we call it religion, whether we call it the universe or God or spirituality, all those things. I invested so much money and time in all the books, speaking to people I knew. Back then it was like also the cassette books. There wasn't actually any CDs at that point, or they were pretty around, but not for the topics that I wanted. And I even did all these things, and I just felt even more confused because it was too much information. Too much information. I needed the wisdom. I needed knowledge. And where do you get knowledge? Well, that's someone who is knowledgeable, right? Where do you get wisdom? You don't always get wisdom from a book. You may not even get wisdom from a podcast, even this one fully, right? It may be good information, but where do I get the application of information? Well, usually getting help with someone. So I urge you, if you possibly can, if not, save until you can save no more, to be able to get someone to show you the way. And that's not even about my program. Like, put it in the context of getting better at something. If you want to learn how to play the piano, it's better to get a teacher of someone who knows how to play the piano. If you want to lose weight, in the quickest form, you want to get an expert on nutrition or lifting weights and all those things. So we tend to think, well, yeah, that makes logical sense if I want to learn to sing or learn to play the piano or to put my kid through school for scholarships, to train them that way. But we rarely think about that for ourselves in our own education. And I don't know if it's because we feel shameful that we're investing on ourselves, or we're feeling guilty Usually people with low self-esteem, not feeling good enough, feel guilty for even putting them out there at themselves first to invest in themselves. What people may think, or what my partner think if I'm investing in myself. But you've got to put that all to one side, in my opinion. Like, even if you work with someone in your hometown, or if you work with someone like Tony Robbins, if you work with some amazing therapists and psychotherapists out there, you want to make sure you get the best person to help you. Like, if I have a medical issue, I want to make sure I get the best person that I can afford, if not save up for, to be able to really help my physical well-being. I'll tell you a brief example of that exactly as well. So I cannot remember the name, but my ex-partner had an accident, and ultimately part of her wrist got kind of almost like crumpled and destroyed. And she was told that she would never be able to bend her wrist. It'd always be fixated in place based on this. It's technically a disease, but based on this condition, they were just unable to do it. So we did whatever we could. So we're in San Diego, and we went all the way up to LA speaking to like these specialists and surgeons. And yeah, it costs a lot of money. I think it was like $12,000 or more what we had to pay for beyond the insurance, something similar. So yeah, a lot of money. But over a quick period of time, she was able to bend her wrist fully and completely. Yes, there's a healing process. But if we went with the first opinion where it said, oh, we just need to fuse it together and do those things, and you'll never be able to do it, and bend that wrist, and why is that so important? Well, she was doing yoga. She was a yoga teacher. It's very helpful to bend your wrist. So we did whatever it took to get the specialist because it was that important. In this case, for her love and passion, but also as a business, so important. And I think we should see our mind and emotional well-being as a business almost. Like, you want to be invested in yourself. If you see yourself as a stock, as an analogy, well, if you don't put time and energy, that stock will plummet. But if you put time and energy in the growth, that value will heighten up. So yeah, number one, assume responsibility, but also to get someone on your team to support you, to get you the shortcut, is actually far less expensive. I've worked with people who have spent tens of thousands of dollars for a period of long time, lots of other people, change workers or medications, and it's far outweighed what they could have done if they went to the specialist in the beginning. So that's what I would tell myself. Rather going through all the books, and the podcast didn't exist back then, but the stereotypes and asking people who I thought could have it, my friends and so on, having that deeper connection, I would have just skipped the queue. Even if it meant saving like I couldn't save no more, just to get the advice that I needed. Because not only does it quicken the process, but it also, despite maybe it's expensive up front, but that prolonged amount of not getting results and investing in other things, that's even way more expensive, even just on time. So that would be my second one. The other aspect, ideally, especially in this context, I felt significantly alone. I didn't feel like anyone understood me. I didn't feel like anyone got me. I felt like I was lost and alone, broken and unfixable, and there was no way that I could actually let people know about that. In fact, the way I got into this path was not letting anyone know. It was actually being found out. You see, my father one day noticed that I had buried away all this exam stuff I had to take for insurance because I dropped out of college and so on. And if I was going to be certified and in corporate insurance type of thing, I need to do it. And he noticed this, like, why haven't you been doing your work? And that's when we had the honest conversation of that something wasn't right. But I would have tried to bury that so much if I didn't get found out for the end ultimately, right? Because I just felt lost and alone and I didn't feel like I could connect. So I would tell myself find people who get you. Find people who have been where you are, who have overcome or getting there, who support you and lift you up. Like, although I've never been to a meeting in my whole life, I don't even know too much about it, but if we think of like systems like the AA, it works. There's a philosophy, there's a step system, but also there's a level of connection. Now, it's not going to be resonant for everyone who has drinking issues, because nothing's always going to be resonant for everyone. But it works. Why? Because they feel like people get understood. You feel seen, heard, and felt. And to me, that is a human value. It's a human value to be seen, heard, and felt. It's something that is never met when we don't feel worthy and we feel worried and anxious. So I would be saying, who can I plug myself into? Now, hopefully the expert has something like that, because they work with many people. But if not, find a group of pure, lifting up individuals as a group who will support you on your journey in the same way that you will. Because then you will be seen. Then you will feel heard. You will feel felt. You'll feel not alone. You'll actually feel accepted and even validated. Not in a way, and here's the thing, you want to make sure that you're not with people to validate your issue, because that doesn't work. Validation of an issue keeps you stuck. Because people go, well, that's why you are like you are. Then you go, yeah, that's why I am like I am. I can never change. You want the validation that you are able to overcome this. Yes, things happened, and we can understand why they happened, but it doesn't have to cause you to stay that way. So that validation of people who get you will also be honoring you by saying, actually, there's more to this. There's more to experience and to change and to transform. So I would be trying to plug myself into a tribe, a family, a community. So number one, assume responsibility. Number two, go for the root cause as much as possible. Like, get that help if need be. And that goes into the investment into yourself to fast track, because otherwise it's just a continuous cost. Cost of pain, cost of time, cost of missed opportunity, which could even make you more wealthy. I mean, I speak to people a lot who are in this issue and it's stopping them make money. They have goals of earning $5,000, $10,000, $25,000 per month, but this core issue is stopping you. So that is an absolute investment to let it go. Whether it be with me or other people, I don't care. Ultimately, I'm doing good in terms of being happy with who I work with. So I would want you just to find someone who truly understands you and your journey. But that's what I'd be telling myself. So it's a little like internal talk that I'd be having myself if I had all of that. So then it goes to making a decision. Because if you go, well, I'm going to assume responsibility, I'm going to go for the root cause, I'm going to find someone who's been there and overcome it, in other words, an expert that you can invest in, to have that community who have been there, who are overcoming it. There'll be examples of people who have made changes. There'll be people just like you in the beginning stages, but you're in it with this one transformation movement. Like when two or more people come together, magical things happen. On the previous episode, I think I actually said you are the sum of the 5 closest people around you, or just the closest people around you. Well, if you bring in this new tribe of people who support you, and it could be 2, 3, 4, 5, it could be 10, 15, 20 people, who then lift you up, you are standing on the shoulders of giants. I never really got that term until it must have been about 10 years ago. But me investing, and this going into investing, so I do apologize. I don't want to talk about investing anymore. But I invested $25,000 once into a group business program. And I wanted to be the so-called stupid person in the room. Because although it was very, very vulnerable and scary to do so, to surround myself with very successful people, I knew if I didn't know anything compared to everyone else, I might have my superpower of doing like hypnosis and things like that, But if I could hang around with people who are better than me, who know more than me, I can learn, I can model them, I can ask questions, and yeah, I can help them as well. But when I invested that, I was suddenly entered the arena with a team on my side, standing on the shoulders of giants because they've been there. They gave me their stories of how they went through things, which I could apply to myself to get forward. So just have that in your mind. You don't have to do any of these things. It is if I were to start again, right? This podcast is all about me on this one because that was the subject if I had to start again. So I'm saying that playfully, by the way. So once we got those in place, then I have a choice. Goes back to number one, but I have a choice. I have two paths. I can either stay the same and remain in pain. I can be a consequence of my environment, a product of my environment, a product of my past. I could be the product of what that person told me. I could be a product of that relationship which was never ever good, like in terms of like used and abused sexually, physically, mentally, verbally, all those kind of things. I can choose to stay the same. And that's fine as well, because that's what I love about us. We have choice. That's the part of assumption of responsibility. I get to choose my path. I may not get to choose when the sun comes up. I may not even get to choose what people say. They may even say mean things about me. They may be very critical about me, but I get to choose how I respond. I get to choose how I react to it. But if I'm on that effect side, I'm going to stay the same, even if I choose to be there, right? Here's the other thing very quickly, is another side step, is usually we gain something from a problem. Even you think I'm crazy there, even if it's a safety mechanism, your body's doing it for a reason, usually protection, usually safety. But then it goes beyond that. Sometimes we get attention by having issues. Let's be honest, sometimes we can put our hands up and go, when I'm depressed, my friend calls me up and I feel safe and secure, and it's a bit of a security blanket. Like that's my thing, so I buy into it more, right? And that can be scary to give up. But sometimes we've got to step up and go, I'm ready for more than this. Although I get something from staying the same, even if it was a bare minimum of some form of intentional protection, even though I experienced that, I've got to recognize staying the same is the most long-term painful thing compared to the other option of deciding to do what is right. You see, one thing I have always been saying to myself over the last few years, I get to live, I get to work, I get to choose, I get to have fun, I get to work out. That is choice. But I also get to make decisions which will either lift me up or bring me down. I get to do that. And that a conscious epiphany makes me go, well, what can I do to lift me up? What decisions can I make when I assume that responsibility? And the other thing I've been thinking about the last couple of years is that most people, including you, especially you, if you experience anxiety, worries, fears, and doubts, most people on the planet decide based on fear. And there's a reason. One, yes, there's social conditioning. There's a lot of fear in the world. But we can bring it back to biology. It is a protective mechanism. The first part of our brain, the R brain, the reptilian brain, the first part which was keeping us safe, the territorial, the fight and flight or freeze. All of those things is hardwired into our neurology, that fight and flight response. Yeah, we have all the conditioning fears beyond that, but even if we let go of all those unwarranted, inappropriate fears, there's still hardwired the fight and flight. You can't stop that. Like, I can let go of all your fears, worries, and doubts and anxieties. I can do that. But I can't let go of the fight and flight. That is biologically wired into you. So we can see how most people, with that, but especially then the conditioning on top of that, make decisions based on fear. especially if we don't feel worthy, deserving, or enough. We're absolutely going to make decisions based on our fear. But here's what I say to myself. When I've got challenges, when I've got things which are big, and I have big things that I like to try to do, when things are so big for me, yet equally important to me in terms of what it will give me, and I'm feeling that fear, and if I was torn to myself back then, starting again, where back then, or if I had to start again right now, I would be going, rather deciding on fear, I'm going to decide on what is right. Now, what is right? I don't know for you. But if I were to start again, I'd be thinking it's right for my health, it's right for my happiness, it's right for my abundance, it's right for any future relationships, it's right for my purpose, because that means I'm going to help people, having let go of this issue if I had to start again. But something deeper than that, because all those things are true, because it could be also about children, like if you've got children, to be an example of what can be done so you don't pass down the same traits and limiting beliefs to them. There's lots of whys, right? There's lots of reasons and whys we want to, or why the whys that we want to be able to let this go. But sometimes it can be something deeper, like to feel peace, to feel love, to feel seen by yourself, to feel heard by yourself, to be absolutely felt. So you feel that unity within you, rather than conflict, it falls back into wholeness. You see, then when I make decisions based on what is right, whatever that right is for you, over the fear, how can you not change when you take responsibility, when you get the symptoms out and get to the root cause, get the help to solve it, or find the root cause and then solve it. Get yourself with a network and people can love on you, lift you up, and help you and support you while you do the same. And then also making the decisions to do what has to be done because it is right. That is what I would do if I had to start again, and it would quicken the results in lightning speed. Probably for my big goals and dreams, it would be within years if I actually started way back then doing that philosophy. Because how can you not win and succeed when you do just that? I think it's impossible because yes, you get the better safety mechanism. Yes, you've got evidence by those you're plugged into. Yes, you've got the mentorship and the help. Yes, you've got the root cause down and the strategy because you got the help. All of those things. How can you not succeed? But if one of those elements is missing, it can be a little bit tricky. A little bit tricky. Sometimes I like to think about it as baking a cake. Right? If you have the wrong temperature, you miss out on an ingredient, you don't show up or you show up late, it's not going to come out the way that you want. But if you have those ingredients together, you get to create something delicious which will nurture you and your soul. It'll get to nurture your essence. Because each one of those elements to me is powerful and it gets the results. So I hope you got value from this. That's what I would do if I had to start again, or if I was speaking to my younger self of what to do to be able to quicken the process in every single way. Now, of course, there's not going to be for everyone. But if you are invested in yourself and you're like, yeah, this all resonates. Yes, I personally want to work with you, Joseph, because not everyone does. You may want to work with other people, which is totally fine. Like I said, I don't mind about that as long as you get your result. That's my commitment to you. That as long as you get the result, I do not mind. But if you want to personally work with me and those in my team and to be plugged in and all those things I mentioned technically, but if you experience not believing you're worthy, good enough, or deserving, or anxiety or self-consciousness or the self-sabotage, the imposter syndrome, the fear of not being enough, the fear of rejection, the fear of being hurt, the fear of success, the fear of being found out, all of those things, you can go to josephclough.info/talk. When you go there, you're going to book a time on a calendar. You're going to fill out an application to prepare us, and then you're going to attend a one-to-one call with us. When you attend that call, we'll get clear on exactly what you want to let go of, exactly what you want to achieve, exactly what's getting in the way, getting deeper to that root cause, and then we'll come up with a plan to solve it all within 8 weeks. Yes, there's time involved, a couple of hours a week for 8 weeks to let go of something so huge, which is nothing, I'm saying that playfully there as well. And yes, there is an investment because it's fully customized for your unconscious mind. And that is worth millions and millions to get that freedom. You can't even put a number on it. It's that powerful in my opinion. That's how I would be seeing it. It's like, if I can let go of all this, it is worth so much, and I'm willing to invest in myself. So once again, that is josephclough.info/talk. And I cannot wait to speak to you on a future episode. The next episode will be a hypnosis session, all about getting inner confidence to really support you. So with that, I will speak to you all very, very soon. Many thanks and goodbye. Oh, and I believe in you.